Spinal Life Takeaways. These are bite-sized segments jam-packed full of information delivered to you at home or on the go. We want to provide fast food for thought from our experienced staff at Spinal Life so that you can get a taste of what we can do for you. So let's travel with confidence. So today we've got Tim McCallum. He's Peer Support Officer here at Spinal Life Australia, but also an experienced traveller to many places throughout the world. Hi, Tim.
Hello, hello.
Thanks for joining us today. So one of the things that we really want to do is talk about what travelling with confidence looks like. And I don't think that it just starts. Your first travelling experience definitely is not done with confidence. So can you tell me maybe a little bit about why you travel, or what was your first travelling experience after your injury?
Sure. Well, I think we travel for two reasons. You know, one, it's either work or leisure. And as you can tell with my outfit today and the props and things, predominantly today will be about the leisure aspect. That's the fun part,
yeah.
right? I didn't do a lot of travelling prior to my own injury. Probably a lot of little local camping things and things like that, but not a lot of big trips away from home. And so for me, after my injury and my accident, I actually really thought that I would never see the world, that I would not be able to get on a plane or, you know, just take those big sort of adventurous trips.
Yeah.
I was really worried about that. I was really lucky when I was in rehabilitation that we had a lot of travel guides, there was a lot of resources showcasing what people were actually doing out in the community and where they were going to. I was really intrigued by that, and so I started the process of researching a little bit more, talking to some more people, making some inquiries, and then all of a sudden I started to realise, hey, this might be a possibility for me.
Yeah.
And so with my family at the time, we started to plan our first trip.
So it's like, so you need to choose a destination. Like obviously it's scary enough to be able to travel, especially now having a new disability, trying to figure out what your needs are and how you take everything and make it all work. But you still have to choose a destination. So in all of the times that you travel, you know, do you choose a destination that's disability specific, or do you just travel for the fun of it?
I think for me, and my memory was, I wanted to go somewhere that I knew I was going to enjoy the destination.
Yep.
So it was all about the destination for me. And that included, it had to be warm, because I grew up and lived in Victoria, and it had to be near water. So we were lucky we went far north Queensland, close to the ocean, and a seaside holiday.
So while you were talking about researching, and that's one of the needs. So in the early days, you traveled by yourself, or did you take a support worker? And versus now, you travel with a family. So how do you make all of this work? What kind of research needs to go into this?
Yeah, sure. Well, I probably can't underestimate actually how important research and planning is when traveling. I've had 23 years of experience now and now travel all over the world. And so I make it sort of the most important part of the trip is actually the planning. And you can't plan too far out in advance, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
the closer
absolutely.
you leave it to your trip, probably the less likely the success is going to be. For me, online is my best friend. All the search engines and things like that, there is so much information out there on the internet about where to go, how to get there, what to do when you get there, what you're going to need when you're there. And so for me, I really enjoy that aspect of just exploring and discovering what is actually out there. And then if you're not comfortable online and you really don't know where to look, there's also help that you can get from professionals like travel agents. You can just call in to a local travel agent and pick up a whole heap of brochures to give you some inspiration. And from there, you probably start to get the bug and look into it a little bit more personally.
And I've used a travel agent before when I was trying to go on a cruise. That the more I researched, the more confused I got about what I should be booking and when's a good time, and it got too much. So I did use a travel agent and it worked out great. But is that when you choose to use a travel agent, or when you're in Australia or overseas, like when is it time?
Well, I think you're exactly right. Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, and things can be confusing online. So for me, I've used travel agents for a couple of different reasons. One was your scenario where I wasn't really aware of what was available, how I was going to be able to reach this particular destination. And the other reason was I just didn't have the time.
Yeah.
And I was actually more than happy to hand some of the responsibility over to the experts. I told them where I wanted to go, and I said, you go about all the logistics. Here's all the information about me, and then just let them fly. And so that's worked really well for me in the past. And I highly recommend that. There are some wonderful disability travel agents out there who are able to help you with that.
Would that be a disability-specific travel agent, or would you just, use like a mainstream?
The best
it
thing,
doesn't matter.
the best thing is it's both.
Yep.
The good thing is that companies these days are becoming more inclusive with their information and their support. And there are some wonderful disability travel agents out there that probably go that next step to understanding what your needs are and how they can best support you on achieving your travel goals.
Do you find out from other people that have sort of disabilities as well that, from them, their own experiences?
There is nothing like sort of that shared community information about what experiences other people have had going overseas. In fact, I reckon I've probably based a lot of my trips off that, sort of first-hand knowledge of a destination or a tourist attraction or something like that.
So Tim, you were mentioning that when it comes to research, when you're researching for overseas trips, you use a lot of internet sites. What about here in Australia? What do you do there?
Oh, it's pretty much the same thing. Google's my best friend in this situation. But what I will say, one of my go-tos is the Accessible Australia app.
Yeah,
Great
definitely.
information on there about where people have already travelled, and just to see how accessible our beautiful country is. That's my go-to for domestic travel and local destinations.
I love travelling Australia as well. So when it comes to travelling, I know, being a peer support officer myself, that we talk about seeing yourself safely into the future. And I know that travelling with confidence means you have to do that as well. But when you haven't been there and you don't know what's going to be available there, the planning really comes into play. And I know when you begin traveling, you have to, when you first have your injury, you create a safe zone at home. You know that everything works perfectly for you and you don't have too many of those, what do I do now? I have to problem solve. So when you're traveling, how do you make sure that you've got somewhere safe to go and that you're going to be okay?
I think the biggest thing in this planning phase is how you replicate that safe zone that you have at home into a smaller package when you travel. No matter how far away it is from home, it could be down the road, to a beach resort, or it could be overseas on a really long trip.
Suitcase-sized safe zone.
Yes. So how do you replicate that in a travel thing? So that's making sure that you have all of the right equipment that you would normally have at home, from hoists to slings, to battery chargers for your wheelchair. And then we're talking medication, making sure you pack all your medications that you need for the time that you're away, plus some more, as well as prescriptions in case you lose them. And then it's all of the creature comforts that you have at home, you're packing them up into a smaller version. And so I've created a checklist for myself now that I do it so often. And it's a really long checklist, and it is my safe zone checklist. And it just gives me the confidence that I've got everything that I need as soon as I leave the house and I'm going to my destination, that I'm going to have everything that I need, that my health, my disability, my condition actually requires for me to be able to enjoy my time away.
When it comes to having that amount of equipment, or the first time you pack, do you kind of look at it all and go, "That's too much"? How do you make that work? Getting on a plane, how do you?
Let's just say my excess baggage from the first time I travelled down to now is much smaller. No, you're exactly right. It can be quite overwhelming to begin with. The reality is, though, is that we do need to take extra things with us. And a lot of travel companies will actually help with that, give you concessions on excess baggage.
Yeah, that was going to be
or-
my next question,
yeah.
is about concessions.
Or they'll allow you to take a shower chair or a hoist or something free of charge, depending on weight and size and things like that. The wonderful thing about it is there definitely are concessions and supports out there for people with disabilities to be able to use to travel. So there are certain cards that you can get that allow you to have a half price carer concessions on flights. Your companion card will obviously give you a free trip for your companion if you're taking a train to a destination, for instance. But yes, help is available and it can be cheaper than what you think.
Yeah, definitely. I think booking a fairway in advance as well obviously can help with those costs. And can kind of guarantee sometimes your room, and because there's not a lot of the accessible rooms sometimes. I don't know, on cruises that's the case. You have to book a couple of years in advance. So,
Yep.
Keeping it in advance, making sure that planning and the checklist is in place, and that you're researching. Fantastic. Yep. So you were saying that one of the things that we can look at is kind of minimizing our baggage. But how do you know what you actually need to travel with, and what maybe you could hire and take care of when you get there? How do you make that decision?
Well, that is the best thing about doing your research beforehand. You might actually be able to find that you can hire and rent out the equipment that you need at your destination. I do that a lot in my travels, especially if I'm traveling by myself, or if I just don't want the hassle of having to take my own hoist and my own shower chair.
Yep.
So I will actually rent or hire when I'm there.
Okay.
It does come with risks in that it might not be exactly the same as what you have at home.
Yep.
So once again, you have to do your due diligence and actually call them and make sure that the shower commode is the right size for your body, that it has an appropriate cushion for you to sit on, for instance, that it's going to be the right height to go over the toilet. Your hoist needs to be able to fit under the bed. So you've got to ask a lot of questions. You've got to know what you need. And you've got to be able to articulately express that to these hire companies to make sure that when you get to your destination, the equipment that rocks up at the hotel is everything that you were hoping it was going to be.
I'm having a panic over here. That's the first thing I'm thinking. Okay, so this is equipment we absolutely need to be traveling with, and we're going to leave it up to somebody else. What if it goes wrong? What happens?
It does. Unfortunately, sometimes it does. I have had a holiday where I rocked up and the hoist wasn't charged and I was ready to go to bed late at night, So just becoming a little bit more resourceful and how to problem solve those difficult times when you don't get what you thought you were going to get.
Yeah, so it's about being able to reach out, because obviously if you're not reaching out, nobody knows that there's a problem. So does that include when you have like a flat battery and you're out and about on your chair, you just ask for help? Start problem solving.
Never be afraid to ask for help. That's such a key point.
Let's get down to the nitty gritty.
Okay.
I know for myself when I travel, especially on a plane, I've got a bit of a hard rule for myself. I travel light. I only travel with what I can carry.
Right.
That's my tip. What are 3 of your top tips for traveling?
Okay, 3 top tips for traveling. All right, we've already mentioned it. Number 1, I can't underestimate the importance of research and planning. Planning before you go. Number 2, I also think it's really important, travel insurance. I know we haven't talked about that yet.
Of course, travel insurance.
But just making sure that you're going to be looked after from your own health perspective, but also your equipment and belongings, all right? That's just a general rule. And I think the third one for me is have fun. Don't let the difficulties, the challenges, the barriers that are sure to come up ruin your holiday. My 3 top tips.
Excellent. Alrighty, so traveling with confidence is about having fun as well. So how about you guys leave a comment for us below. What tips do you have for traveling, whether it's here in Australia or traveling overseas? Write down your tips. We'd love to hear what you've got to say. Thank you so much, Tim, for coming along and explaining so much about traveling with confidence.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for joining us.